All right, so look, we're gonna talk about the All NBA awards. All of them, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna get right on into it because it's a lot to talk about. So, with that being said, we're gonna start it off with the coach of the years. That's right. And well, how do I define my coach of the year? I gotta give you my criteria if I'm gonna tell you my answers. That way y'all can listen to the criteria, see if you like the answers, and then or see if you like the criteria to begin with, and then listen to the answer. At least you can understand the logic, right? So at least the coach of the year criteria, you gotta have the team success and the Wilder storyline. What that means is your team got to be successful. And for those, if you got a weird story to tell, well, I mean, that might help your case out a little bit. Context does matter. So again, maybe there's a team that slipped, but they coming back up, and you see that late push. We appreciate those type of moments. So those coaches get their flowers too. So again, my coach of the year criteria is as that again, team success and the Wilder storylines. So with that, I got a couple coaches in mind. Ty Lue for the Clippers is probably gonna get my nod right now. He got to be top three in the West. Kawhi and PG, they be injured. So if your stars are still injured and you're top three in the West in a tough West, I got to give you a tip of the cap for coach of the year, bro. Then we also got to talk about Joe Mazzulla for the Celtics, and they got to be number one in the NBA. Again, I've mentioned before, they're out of that cutesy phase. Y'all got to dominate. So if y'all number one in the NBA, I might have to say, hey, Joe Mazzulla, you got that nod unless someone wins off a Wilder storyline. Next, we got Adrian Griffin for the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, we got to go number one in the NBA because you got Dame and Giannis. That's supposed to be the best duo in the NBA now. That's what I'm hearing. So if that's the case, that's the expectations. Well, and they got a solid team, right? Well, they got to be number one in order for them to get that team. But also Adrian Griffin, rookie head coach. I mean, I might give him some flowers. Maybe top three in the East. I'll see how it shakes out. But number one in the NBA because you got those two. We also got here Quinn Snyder for the Hawks. I do like the Hawks this year, ladies and gentlemen. They are an interesting team. Trae Young could be having an MVP ish year, but we got to see how that shakes too, though. He is getting up there in age, so none of them prime years is starting to come around the corner. So I know you might start hearing his name into the MVP discussions just a little bit. So I'm looking at Quinn Snyder, especially if they make a big trade, and let's say sneak up to the third team in the NBA in the East, maybe top four. You might have something to talk about. We also got here Willie Green for the Pelicans. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pelicans are a contending team when healthy. So if they're at the top of the West, I gotta give the nod to Willie Green, bro. Because again, they got the talent, and he's shown again that he can get to the top when healthy. So that was my dark horse last year. That's a candidate for me this year. Other ones you got Jason Kidd for the Mavs, Frank Vogel for the Suns, Ryan Silverfield for the Wolves, and then you got Mike Malone for the Nuggets. But those kind of round out my coaches of the year. So we can go ahead and go on to the next one. But again, I did say maybe it's biased, but I do want Ty Lue to get one. He deserves it. It's about time, right? Like PG and Kawhi, they've been hurt for so long. It hurts me. I'm like I don't know. We'll talk about it another time because now we got to go on to the rookie of the year. That's right, the rookie of the year, which again, my criteria is as follows. You got to talk about the criteria to see if you like my criteria, then you can listen to my results to see if it's logical and if you can and how it goes against yours. Of course, we got Victor Wembanyama. From the Spurs. It's probably the fan favorite, right? We also got Chet Holmgren, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but he did not play last year, so he's a rookie this year. Stay tuned. He's on the Thunder, by the way. We also got Scoot Henderson for the Blazers. He was drafted number 3 this year. And then we also got Amin Thompson and Azure Thompson. Amin's on the Rockets and Azure's on the Pistons. But both of these brothers can boogie. So I'm expecting them to have solid production. I'm curious about Azure's role going forward this year. Could be no, I'm sorry. His and Amin's actually, they got a nice little guard to work with ahead of them. At least Azure is going up against players his age, right? Like Hey, dog, I'm got to go up against Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks a little. Like, it's going to be a little tough. So, but we'll see how it shakes. But those 5 players, rookie of the candidates. And honestly, my pick is Chet Holmgren. I got to pick anybody. And I'll say Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama for co-rookie of the year. Because you got to think, too, Chet Holmgren's probably going to have a big impact in OKC going to the playoffs this year. He's also going to produce himself. So how does that factor in with Victor Wembanyama's star-studded year? It's going to be a Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James type scenario. Not saying they're that type of players scenario. But again, that's my answer for Rookie of the Year this year. I stated it before. I'm going to keep my prediction. All right, but now we can go on to Most Improved, which Most Improved for me is as follows, my criteria. Your production, of course, right? Then your situation, too. Like, I mean, you can be a 6th man, but if you're that 6th man that getting them starter minutes, that's really beneficial for you. Like, if you're finishing most games, that's going to bode well for you. You also got the prior year stats. Have you improved prior year? I would appreciate it if you did. And then your impact as well. How impactful are you to your team? Which kind of goes to your situation a little bit. But there's a little bit of difference as well. So with that, my listing is as follows. Scotty Barnes off the Raptors, Jonathan Kuminga off the Warriors, Jordan Poole off the Wizards, Trey Murphy off the Pelicans, Tyrese Maxey off the 76ers, and Onyeka Okongwu off the Hawks. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I think these boys are going to have a really solid year. You should hear their names a couple times throughout the season. But if I had to pick one person this year, I gotta go. Ooh, it's tough. It's a tie between Tyrese Maxey, Scotty Barnes, and Jonathan Kuminga. I'm gonna go Tyrese Maxey because I think he's gonna have the ball in his hands a little bit more. So you're gonna see him a little bit more, and he's gonna be paired with Joel Embiid, James Harden, although that could get tricky. But he'll have the ball in his hands more, so you'll see him more. Scotty Barnes, you don't have Fred VanVleet, but I think they want to keep him for the future. So expect for him to showcase why they want him to be around, not to mention it's about his 3rd full season. So you should expect a little bit of a jump this year from Scotty. And then, of course, Jonathan Kuminga, paired with Chris Paul, Steph Curry, and the Warriors, being on that second team, I think he's going to flourish, especially if you watch preseason a little bit. So again, ladies and gentlemen, those are my picks. If I got to lean one player, I'm going to say Tyrese Maxey because of his situation, again, being paired with James Harden, Joel Embiid. While you think that might hurt him, I think that actually helps his case out. The gravity they pull is going to allow Tyrese to also be himself, make the game a little bit easier. And you've seen what he's done thus far. So expect him to take another little jump. But with that, again, y'all have heard my Most Improved. Let's move on up to the 6th man of the year, which we got to talk about the criteria, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a nice little listing. So I'm going to just say this guy. I got to read it off my daggone self. So off the break, if you averaging 20 points a game, you might be the automatic winner. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, okay? That's what I've seen in history. That's what I got to work with. Plus 6 man bringing in 20 points a game. Bro, you might as well be a starter. I don't know why you're coming off the bench. But maybe you just want to come off situational awareness. I understand that. After that, though, top 3 points scored out of the 6 men, what you got to be thrown on this list. Because, again, you bringing in a lot of points for the team. Like, end of day, that's what the 6th man is doing, bringing in those points. Also, the win shares, though that's my tiebreaker person. Win shares aren't always the biggest factor for 6 men, but if we got like a tie scoring wise, I'm gonna give the win shares as the tiebreaker. Win shares mean who's bringing in the most wins to their team end of day. And then I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. The Wilder storyline, right? If you got a wild story that helps your case out, we'll take it. You know what I'm saying? For example, like Eric Gordon, he was on the best team record-wise in 2017. As an example. You know what I'm saying? So again, that's my 6-man criteria. And my listing is as follows. Shout out to Malcolm Brogdon because he did win it last year. So we got to put him up here because there's a slight possibility that he could win it this year being on the Blazers. Who knows? We got to see how it shakes out. I don't think he can, but it's possible. They got to get to the play-in game, which I think there's a case there. For him to win it, not the case for the play-in. Tune in. We got here Malik Monk, and this is in order, by the way, off the Kings, Norman Powell off the Clippers, Christian Wood off the Lakers, Derrick Rose off the Grizzlies, Tim Hardaway Jr. off the Mavs, Derek White or Drew Holiday off the Celtics, whoever comes off the bench, Bobby Portis off the Bucks, Jose Alvarado off the Pelicans, Dante DiVincenzo or Emmanuel Quickley, who was a candidate last year off the Knicks, Kelly Oubre off the 76ers, Jordan Clarkson off the Jazz, Eric Gordon off the Suns, Jonathan Kuminga, who's a little question mark right now, Gary Trent Jr. off the Raptors, and Kuminga was on the Warriors, and then Jeremy Sokan off the Spurs, but that's contingent upon if they get to the playoffs, which again, I don't have them up there, hence why you saw the asterisk for him and Kuminga. The Warriors, I do expect to get to the playoffs, but like 6-man, Jonathan Kuminga, he could. I just think that's a little bit too premature right now, but he could prove me wrong. Again, I have Malik Monk as my number one pick because, again, the Kings this season are a really good team. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes. Well, Malik Monk is actually one of them players, too, who can get the job done in the day. He can score, not as streaky as some people might think, too, by the way. Got solid athleticism, a good enough defender. And you know what? The team actually relies on him. And he's showcased over the last 2 seasons, he can be a quality 6-man in the NBA. So, as a candidate this season, a strong candidate, I'm looking at Malik Monk off the Kings. But any of these players can win it. Norman Powell be getting me 20 points a game almost for the Clippers. You cannot overlook that. Christian Wood, he could be our third option this season. So again, there's a lot of players. Hell, Derrick Rose has a strong case from an actual production as well as an emotional standpoint. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these players got it. I'm just looking at Malik Monk because, again, his situation. Plus, I'm expecting his production. But, we'll see how it shakes. We're going now to the GABPod, the Defensive Player of the Year. But, again, you got to talk about the criteria first. So, with that being said, you got to be top 5 in defensive win shares at the end of the day. I'm sorry. It's not just stats-based, but win shares do matter for me. So, defensive win shares, I do factor in a little bit. Top 5, that's been, the track for the history. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Sorry. Next, we got to talk about your production. You could talk about that's production / impact, but your production, it does go beyond stats, right? So again, that's why I say you could say impact as well. Because if you're not as impactful defensively, yeah, you can numbers lie, ladies and gentlemen. But that impact does factor, that production does factor in quite heavily. So if you producing, we gonna pay attention. Eye test does catch it. Now you also do have to have the numbers as well too. Though we can't say, well, he's dominant, but you ain't got no numbers to back it up. Now you got to have some type of proof. Proof is in the pudding. So them steals, them blocks, whatever. If they tracking deflections, all those numbers, you got to have something to showcase, like a 1-and-1, 1 steal, 1 block. If you a big 1 steal, 2 blocks, something like that, we'd appreciate that. And then of course your Wilder storyline. If you hold him down to 4, like Rudy Gobert was low-key a Wilder storyline at one point in time. Just give you a little reference, like you're the defensive anchor, Draymond Green, Wilder storyline. You know what I'm saying? Something like that where you're 6'7", you're playing against bigs. Like that's a Wilder storyline to me personally. So you heard my criteria. My listings are as follows. We got to throw Jaren Jackson Jr. up there because he's the GABPod, right? Reigning GABPod. You also got to throw Giannis in there. With Damian Lillard on the team, he don't have to focus on offense as much. So he can pay a lot more attention to defense, which he's had a GABPod before. We also got here OG Anunoby or Scotty Barnes if he decides to, go ahead and lock down the way I know he can. But they do have a quality duo out there, by the way. But one of those two could actually sneak in the GABPod this year. You also got here Joel Embiid. He won MVP last season. He might say, you know what, I want GABPod. If he's engaged enough. You saw it in the playoffs. He was swatting stuff on a bad knee. Come on now. If he's healthy, he's one of the best players defensively, if not the best. Just saying. So we could see him at GABPod. You also got to talk about someone like Jared Allen as well. He might want to rebound from last season. Because remember, he was known as a defender. So with the chip on the shoulder, also Clint Capella, can't sleep on players like that. But again, if I got to throw anyone down right now, I might look at Giannis or Triple J for the repeat. But I'm gonna say Giannis though for who I'm leaning with right now. Because again, with Damian Lillard and you got Brook Lopez to back you up, I think they're going to give you the nod, big man, if you get up, if your team is successful and you dominate defensively like you have in the past. So my depoy, I got Giannis. We're going to have to transition on now to the favorite one, though. Like MVP. MVP, ladies and gentlemen. My criteria is as follows. You got to be top 4 in win shares. All right. I've already made this video before. You also got to have the production, like everybody else, right? If you're not producing, you're not on this list. I'm sorry, end of the day. Then the team, your team, you got to be top 10 in the NBA. So that means you have to be number 1 through like number 4, maybe 5, okay? In the NBA. And then finally, of course, based on the themes that y'all have heard thus far, the Wilder storyline. So with averaging a triple-double and carrying your team to the playoffs, shout out to Russell Westbrook. That's a Wilder storyline, okay, as an example. Or leading your team who are missing the number 2 and 3 option to the playoffs as a 6 seed. Shout out to Nikola Jokic. Wilder storyline. Or dragging your team when you lose your dynamic duo to the playoffs. Shout out to Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. That's a Wilder storyline. So again, y'all understand what I'm talking about when I say Wilder storyline. So for the MVPs this year, ladies and gentlemen, first let's go ahead and get out the usual suspects in Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, and reigning MVP Joel Embiid. But those 3, they've been up there for like so long, actually. It's almost kind of sad to mention them on the list at this point. Feels like cheating, right? So we got to talk about some new people. So with that being said, we got to talk about Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Davis. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased right now because I'm a Laker fan. But I do believe those 4 players outside of the usual suspects can be MVP caliber or play at the MVP caliber level this season. Luka, he's been doing it almost since he came into the league, right? So if his team gets to the playoffs, it's going to be hard to put him out of the MVP discussion when it's just him and Kyrie. That's the perception. Or you got Jason Tatum. Well, if his team's at the top of the NBA and he's dominating offensively and defensively, how can you not say he's MVP when you can make the case now, oh, he's arguably the best player in the game? Because someone, as a Jason Tatum fan and Celtics fan, can make that case if what I just said actually occurs. Or how about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Because again, OKC, let's say they get to the playoff push as a 6 seed. At least Luka has Kyrie. Yeah, you could talk about Josh Giddey and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. They're young pups right now, so they're still building. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is perceived as the lead dog, as the lone all-star, as the lone star on the team, and he actually is right now. So if his OKC Thunder are in the playoff hunt, how is he not MVP? Anthony Davis, if we're dominating offensively and defensively, and you're making a strong case that you're the best player in the game, like you have the talent to do so, how is he not in the MVP? So there are a lot of players who can be MVP this season. Who do I expect to be MVP, though? I mean, I kind of low-key feel like they want to give it to Jokic again. But I do feel like this year could be actually Luka's. I've made Luka as the MVP before. He burned me very badly that season, by the way. But this season feels a little differently. I do feel like him and Kyrie are going to try to gel, get a little something proper. And I do think that's going to get them over the hump to the playoffs. Not to mention the fan support. I don't know if they're going to get that 6 seed, but I do believe they can get that 5th, 6th seed, possibly a little higher, maybe 4th. I don't want to say higher than 4th, because if I just say possibly higher, that leaves it open-ended, right? I want to make sure I give a cap. So, Luka, please don't disappoint me this season, dog. Like, I appreciate it if you don't, because there are some players out there that I really could have chosen outside of you. Hell, I could have said Joel Embiid running back for MVP. I don't think that happens, but he could. It could possibly happen. Y'all have been disrespecting him all off season. So, I mean, he could have a chip on the shoulder too. You never know. But Luka, I'm cheering for you, champ. Prove me right, please. But ladies and gentlemen, please like, subscribe, comment, tell anyone about the show. My name is Trey. I'm the host of Get a Bucket. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Take care. did not know you guys were still here. As you can see, we're at the back end of the show. No pun intended, but look, hope you all enjoyed it. And before you go, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow the IG account, share the content to anybody who's anybody. And most importantly, leave your thoughts and comments below. But I gotta go back and play Buddy in 2K, so let me unmute him real quick. Excuse me. Hey, boss, I'm back. Nah, you better catch this word. You know we get buckets around here, too.